Prepper Lite, the simple prepper choice. Like, subscribe, share, bell icon, all that stuff. What does Prepper Lite mean? For those of you who don't know what a prepper is, I guess, a prepper is somebody who prepares for a disaster or an emergency. So when most people hear the term prepper, they think of like doomsday preppers, like the TV show where their whole life revolves around prepping. It's like Benny, the 80s astronaut from the Lego movie 2, the second part, where he's like, how did you know that loving spaceships was my one defining trait? Right? And we don't want to be that kind of prepper, right? I mean, if people want to be that kind of prepper, they can. But that kind of prepper is what turns most people off to the idea of prepping. And it's not really that crazy. And when I talk about prepping, I talk about Prepper Lite, just kind of common sense prepper. And so I'm going to go through what that means to me, and hopefully we'll get some good feedback. And if there's something that I left out, please mention it. When I say light, I mean what are the most important, absolute, have to have items or skills in the event of an emergency. And I'm going to do these kind of in an order. The bottom three that I'm going to talk about first are kind of all secondary. I think that they're equally important. And then the top two, I think, are also basically equally important. So these are the first and second place, but there's like a bunch of ties in there, okay? So the very first thing is guns. Guns, again, are secondary, but they are important. They're important for food. They're important for self-defense. During the riots, people called the cops and said, hey, there's some people causing problems outside my house. And the cops said, well, good luck. So if you don't think guns are important, they are, okay? With that, make sure that you have a decent amount of ammo, that you have the right kind of ammo for each particular situation. But almost more important, I would actually put this into the number one category, even though it's a part of guns, is training. Training. You need to be able to handle a firearm responsibly. You need to be able to use it accurately. You need to be able to use it if you're tired or in the event of an emergency when you've got adrenaline going through your body. That only comes with training and practice. So if you are going to have guns as part of your Prepper Lite, which I think that you should, I would also encourage you very strongly to get very good training and have a lot of practice. I know I said that was number one, but it was number 5 because it's the end, right? So number 4 is going to be food, right? At my church, they've suggested that we have a 3-month to 2-year food storage, right? And you don't know how much food storage you have until you actually go and inventory it. One caveat with food storage is you need to make sure that you eat out of it occasionally or regularly so that A, you know how to use the food that's in there, and B, make sure that it's food that you'll actually eat and especially that your children will eat. Now, I feel like I'm like John Rambo. I can eat things that would make a billy goat puke, but I know that my kids are going to be a little bit pickier than I am. So if you're going to have food storage, make sure that it's food that you would actually eat. Make sure that it's food that you do actually eat, and make sure that you're rotating it out on occasion depending on what the food is. So number 3 is a lot like number 4. It's water. Water can look like bottles of water. It can look like big 5-gallon jugs of water. It can look like 55-gallon jugs of water, right? Any size of water is good. With that, it's not a bad idea to have some sort of water filtration so that if you are not near your water, you're able to still get drinkable water. So those 3 are all, I think, equally important: guns, food, and water, and they're kind of second tier necessities. So if food and water are second tier, what is a first tier necessity? The first one I'm going to talk about is first aid. In the event of an emergency, knowing how to properly bandage a wound, clean a wound, help with a rolled ankle or a shoulder. These are the things that people don't think about that in the event of like a real long emergency is how you're going to lose, how people are going to get really sick and could possibly die. We spend very little time thinking about first aid because we live in a really clean world for the most part. Very, very basic part of first aid, and maybe this, would go somewhere else in like toiletries or something, is just having things to stay sanitary, having enough soap that if, there's a breakdown in supply chain, you can still get clean. Infection is one of the ways that, when you look at the Civil War, which I know that we're like way past that, and we've got all sorts of medicine and stuff. But when you look at the Civil War, more people died from infection than they did from like actual wounds. So basic first aid is just really important. Now, if you want to go and get like an EMT certification or combat medic training or something like that, then that's good. That's better. The more first aid experience that you have, the better you will be. Guns, food, water, first aid. This one barely ekes out over first aid as far as importance, and it's physical fitness. And I know that I'm dad of gym life, and I enjoy going to the gym. And I've talked a little bit about, going to the gym to be ready for an emergency, but physical fitness really is, in my mind, the number one important thing in the event of an emergency. If there's an emergency and you have to provide first aid, but you're not physically fit in order to do so, none of your first aid training will help. If there is an emergency and you have to go somewhere and take your water with you, but you are not physically fit enough to carry that water, it doesn't matter that you have the water or the food or the guns. If you have to, provide your own food with a gun and you're not physically fit enough to go hunting and to get that animal and to bring that animal back, then it doesn't help you to have a gun. In my mind, physical fitness is the number one most important thing in prepping. So that's it. That's what Prepper Lite means to me. Have some guns, have some food, have some water, know some first aid, and be physically fit. Prepper Lite. Don't let it control your life. Let it just be an aspect where you're ready. If you agree or disagree, maybe on the order, or if there's something that I missed, please let me know in the comments below. If you haven't watched it yet, I've got my video on getting punched in the face right here and why that's important, and taking care of your body right here. Thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you next time.
Shoo-boo-wop-bop-beep-bop-a-doobie-doobie. Watch the videos.